Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. It is your Friday recap time and time for another moment of Zeneca, the longest running and only really recurring segment on Overpriced JPEGs, unless we consider Blockbuster a segment at this point. But Blockbuster is like a franchise.
Yeah.
Well, Moment of Zeneca was supposed to be like a 10-minute thing during the episodes, or at least in my head, that's what it was. And then like the very first one we talked for like 60 minutes, and I was like, cool, so this is just now an episode we do. But joining us on this Moment of Zeneca is, you know him, you love him, producer and partner at Overpriced JPEGs, Gavin Purcell. Fonky Donk. Thanks both for being here.
Woo, good to be here.
Excited to be here.
What is it, like a year and a half since the first one? It feels like a million years ago that we've been doing this, but yeah.
I know. I think January 2022 is when you came on the podcast for the first time in November of 21. And then it was like over the winter holiday that you were like, hey, would you want to like do something more recurring? And I was like, yes. Actually, that was my experience with both you guys. Both you guys like approached me very humbly about an opportunity that I was like, yeah, no, yes, I would like to work with you. Okay, so a couple quick announcements before we dive into our usual scheduling program or whatever. It has now been announced on Twitter, but I am so excited to announce that the next guest, not the first guest, the next guest on the Overpriced JPEGs, the Overpriced Happy Hour Tour is going to be Daniel Allegre, new CEO of Yuga Labs. He will be joining us in Austin, Texas. That is April 28th at 6 p.m. I will be sitting down for a deep dive fireside chat with Daniel Allegre, talking all things Yuga, talking his transition from Activision Blizzard, et cetera, et cetera. And if you are an OPJ NFT holder, you can start reserving your tickets at 12 p.m. Friday, April 14th. So this will air on April 14th, depending on when you're listening to this. Presumably, the tickets will be available starting now. OPJ holders will have like 48, 72 hours, something like that, to reserve their seats first. And then starting Monday, April 17th, all Yuga asset holders at 12 p.m. Eastern time, all Yuga asset holders will be able to start reserving seats for that. It is limited seating, first come, first serve. So given that advantage to the OPJ holders and then Yuga asset holders. And then if there are still tickets, anybody with a consensus ticket will also be invited to grab a seat. So I'm so excited for this one. This has been a secret I've had to keep for a long time. And I kept being like, do not back out on me. Like they were like, we can't publicly announce this yet. And I was like, let me publicly announce this. So I think it'll be his first first podcast interview since taking over as CEO for Yuga. So really excited about it.
That's going to be awesome. I'm very curious.
Zeneca, did you know that, Carly and I didn't know this, did you know that like he only started full time there like 2 weeks ago?
I did know that, but I only found out like within the last month because they were like, oh, he's starting. And I'm like, wait, he hasn't already started?
It was that announcement of like, I'm finally, I'm starting. And Gavin texted me and he was like, did you know he hadn't started? We'd been talking to their team about having him do this interview. We've been talking to their team about doing this interview for like 2 months or 3, whatever it's been. And I was like, no, I had no idea he had not started. I just thought he was like acting CEO of Yuga.
Yeah.
But no, not at all. I'm sure he's been involved though. I would imagine, especially given in light of like the Wiley news and stuff. I'm sure he maybe even had to ramp up what he was doing. Okay, so that news, Zeneca, you're going to be at Consensus?
No, unfortunately not. I was almost going to be there. I really wanted to make it, but I'm going to be in America for VCon, and then there's Lisbon in June, and like I have a friend getting married in the end of May, and so like I have this 6-week trip, and then to make a Consensus, it would have been an 8-week trip, and then it's like, well, NFT NYC 10-week, and I had to like cut it somewhere, and unfortunately Consensus was like I really, really wanted to come. Yeah.
If you get COVID during VCon, I swear to God, I will personally come, and I don't know what I'll do. But my point is, we've never met in person. It sounds like VCon is finally going to be our opportunity to do so. And if something throws a wrench in that, I will be devastated. Y'all know, I think one of the most powerful use cases for NFTs are loyalty programs, which is why I'm so excited about our latest partner, GALXE. That's GALXE. GALXE is a leading platform for building a Web3 community. It is a no-code, plug-and-play solution to create task-based campaigns and loyalty programs. With over 67 million users, GALXE has worked with folks like Optimism, Polygon, Arbitrum, and more than 2,100 other partners with reward-based loyalty programs of their own. And I'm especially excited to announce their latest product offering, GALXE Mint List. Mint List enables NFT projects to issue allow lists based on different user profiles. It's free to use, and projects can then take advantage of GALXE's other offerings, like Task and Quest, which incentivize audience growth and user retention in the long term. Go beyond the mint and keep using GALXE's infrastructure to reward users through on and off-chain actions. GALXE's goal is to help projects grow in an authentic way and help them retain their users and communities over the long haul. And as a user, you can start contributing to your favorite Web3 communities today, joining allow lists through Mint List and earning rewards, NFTs, oats, tokens, and points. Go to galaxy.com right now, that's GALXE.com right now, or click the link in the show notes to get started. Your Web3 community is waiting. I am so excited to announce that this year, Overpriced JPEGs has partnered with OpenSea, the world's leading NFT marketplace, built for everyone, creators, collectors, noobs, and experts alike. I'm an OpenSea user because they have the best selection of NFTs and a truly inclusive view of the ecosystem, supporting 8 chains and 8 global languages. I trust the systems they've put in place to keep the space safe, like copyright protection, malicious URL detection and removal, robust verification, and more. It's why they are the place to buy, sell, and create NFTs. That's right. You know OpenSea, you use OpenSea, but did you know that OpenSea now has drops? New exclusive projects launch every week from top projects and creators, and you can check them out now using the link in the show notes. They also recently introduced self-serve drops, which is in beta, and allows creators to launch their projects right on OpenSea. This drops product gives creators access to tools like rich storytelling drop pages, multi-chain support, and drop mechanic customization. The full launch for self-serve drops is coming this spring. So check out the upcoming drops on OpenSea right now using the link in the show notes and own what moves you. You'll also be supporting the show in the process. Let's get into our regularly scheduled programming, which is, we start with vibes check. Bitcoin broke 30K. Crypto is...
ETH broke 2K.
Doing its thing. It's going great.
ETH broke 2K.
Yeah. ETH broke 2K. Bitcoin broke 30,000. These two move in tandem still. And I mean, again, it hasn't necessarily been the best thing for NFTs, which are basically down to their like pre-airdrop farming levels, like their pre-season 2 levels, where it's sort of like Nakamigos and I guess like wrapped punks, or like, people are like trading back and forth. But how you guys feeling? How you feeling with the market?
I mean, crypto, great. NFTs, just bleak as ever, basically. It's the story of the last month or 2 or 3 really this year. It's like, ETH, Bitcoin, they're up like 100% since the start of the year. And most NFTs are doing the opposite, which to some extent you kind of understand. Like we've discussed this a million times. If ETH and crypto goes up, do NFTs go down? Do they go up? And I think now we're probably seeing the most realistic scenario where, because crypto is pumping and the NFT market has been kind of dead, it's like it's not going to pump the NFT market just because everyone's bullish. And so sure, NFTs are down, but NFTs priced in USDC, they're probably doing okay compared to, like, if they're down 50%, then ETH is up 100%. They're the same. But the sentiment could not be different though. Like in the NFT space, it's like after a long bear market, people just get antsy and they almost turn on each other and toxicity elevates. And whereas in crypto, like people are pretty happy. 30K Bitcoin, 2K ETH, things like the Shanghai upgrade went off. It's like, it's this weird dichotomy is how I see it. Yeah.
Yeah. Are you feeling like there's increased toxicity, Zen?
A little bit. So I had lunch with someone today, and like a few people there were saying how they had been noticing it, and I'm like, you know what? There is a little bit of like, I think people are just like at the end of their tether a little bit more, and it's, even people that were like optimists and bullish and had conviction 6 months ago, a year ago, like every month, like a few more people sort of tend to give up, and that's, I'm sure, happened every other previous cycle, is going to happen every future cycle, but just sentiment keeps getting lower and lower and lower, and then eventually it's going to turn around, but who knows when that is.
I saw a great tweet, which was basically talking about those feelings and how they can be a signal for bottom, right? For like that there's a world where, and this is the case with, I mean, both of you know this coming from studying financial backgrounds, but like it's always the case where people like sell at the very bottom because it seems like it's never going to fix itself that it does, right? Like, and I think that is one of the hardest things as a human being is to take your emotional aspect out of it, right? Exactly.
Fight that urge.
Yeah.
I did this on the other side, right? Like I went on a absolute spending spree beyond, like I used to never buy assets. Zeneca would come on the show. We talked about this. Like I didn't like to buy NFTs over an ETH. I bought like I just like I'm overstating it, but like I bought a bunch of shit that I historically would never have bought right before it crashed. Like I just so felt I did exactly that human psychology. Like anyways. And
we all do it.
So I'm just like, I'm going to continue to grip, I figured. I figure like life's gotta look better someday.
I will say one thing. Gripping. The Nakamigos thing is interesting only because, and I just wrote a very long thing for our newsletter about it, but like what I did like about that project was that the idea that like it does kind of get back to the heart of what was interesting about NFTs. Now there's a lot of other stuff that went around it I want to talk about, but it was simple art, identity first, not a crazy amount of utility promise, and it has been resonating. So there's something about that, that kind of warms my heart a little bit. Do you know what I mean? It makes me feel good inside, which is nice.
No, let's plug this real fast. So for the Overpriced JPEGs Pro this week, we had a big deep dive on Nakamigos that Gavin spearheaded, and it's awesome. And it did make me quite bullish on Nakamigos. Like it was interesting, and you really dove in, Gavin, on the kind of the trading behavior a bit. I mean, I don't want to overstate that, but what I think is really interesting is you do have this dynamic where people and whales are buying that kind of they're trying to find the Migos that they really like instead of just sweeping a floor. It feels like it's a little bit that behavior back to oh, I want this one, which I feel like we've lost a bit in this space where the whales will come in and they'll sweep a floor, but it's not so much selectively picking ones that maybe aren't even the rarest either. So it's not necessarily an obvious flip. You're not buying the cheapest and you're not buying the obvious rarest ones. You're really looking for ones that resonate with you. That's an interesting reversion to a certain behavior that was really fun at one point. And, I mean, they're up since we wrote that, you wrote that piece. They were at 0.65 something. They're back up to 0.8 now. I think and we were going to maybe talk about this later, but maybe we just bring it up now. Was it Gremplin? Who did the burn? Gremplin, right?
Yep.
Did the, where you had to burn a Nakamigos in order to get one of his most recent pieces, Keep Your Eye on the Fry? Isn't that what it's called? Something like
right.
that?
Yeah.
And that's exactly the energy that you had at one point. Just the silly...
Yes.
Everybody wants to do something with it. And there's been speculation that Gremplin is the artist behind it. I tend to think he's probably not, but who knows? I mean, I get the similarities. And it just has that energy. Mm-hmm. What do you think? I've been following Nakamigos much. And you've talked about it. We've talked about it a little bit here, but what's your thoughts, Zeneca?
Yeah, I haven't been following super closely, but I agree with everything you said, Gavin, about how it's this simple art, but easily recognizable, not much in the way of a roadmap. It's almost this very CryptoPunk-esque, and you see it in the art, you see it in the community that's organically formed around it. People are having fun, people are memeing with it, people are creating derivatives. It's really an energy that we haven't seen in the market for a long time. Maybe the last time I think we saw it in a massive way might have been Goblin Town, before it was obviously revealed and everything came out. It was this really pure organic thing where everyone in the space was just having fun and just doing random stuff, and it worked really well. I mean, until other things made it not work so well. But we're seeing Nakamigos have that effect, which in this market I think is even more impressive.
Yeah.
Well, Goblin Town dropped at a very depressing time in the market as well, so there's maybe even more similarities.
Yeah, and what's interesting is this is now I think the third or fourth week in a row where the main project to talk about is Nakamigos. When I think about these other little projects that have come up during this time and had some energy, it's you talk about them for a week and they're sort of done by the following week. This is week 4 or 3, I said 3 or 4, where this is what we're talking about on this show as sort of the leading NFT story. And I think that's really striking as well, as they've shown a certain amount of staying power. What'll be interesting is if they out themselves, and because that was sort of the initial part of the descent on Goblin Town.
By the way, it hurt Goblin Town in a lot of ways, which is funny because people, as we've talked about here before, I was speculating myself. I thought they were Mike Judge, right? I thought all these things were crazy. And then Truth is an incredible team, but when they came out and said what it was, it definitely hurt it, right?
Well, it's like buy the rumor, sell the news. Once you actually have something that's concrete, it kind of takes the mystery away. So it'll be interesting to see if they I assume they'll out themselves at some point, I think, but who knows? And I have an interesting theory. Hypho Labs is the team behind it, and It reminds me of like Larva Labs, like Yuga Labs. Not saying it is those teams, but like they've tapped into Truth Labs, right? Like I think there's something that feels even like credentialing and official about that you know, who knows, whatever. It's maybe another factor in sort of the whole thing. Do you have thoughts, Gavin?
I was just gonna say, I was trying to think of like who's the craziest person that it could be outside of like, I mean, it's definitely not Larva, and it's not Yuga. Like, is there some like old school crypto person that if they created a collection that was like a throwback to like original NFTs, like who was around in the 2017, 2018 reign that would like actually, oh, that would be interesting. If it was actually like a Pranksy bag. Well, the Pranksy's done a few things, but yeah, that would be a big one, right? Like, or Loopify maybe like in some weird way. But like it'd be interesting.
Did Pranksy get an honorary?
No, he didn't. That's interesting. You're right, he didn't.
Loop got an honorary.
Zeneca, is this you? Let's ask first.
I got an honorary too. It's not me.
Oh, you're right.
I wasn't around then either.
Didn't get an honorary. I don't know. Who wants to ask me? Folks? I didn't get an honorary.
There you go. Breaking news.
Maybe I'm behind it.
Nakamigos is by... the first person that came to mind when you were saying that is... And I'm almost certain it's not, but Snowfro. It's like he loved CryptoPunks. He loves them, that OG vibe. That would be cool. But
he also got an honorary, though. Oh,
did he?
But maybe that's throwing the scent off.
Maybe they're just to throw the scent off.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Jimmy. He knew he wasn't going to be on the NFT100 list, and he was like, I'll show all y'all.
Yeah.
I mean, that 2017 crew, I think of like Pranksy, Jimmy, Carlini, who did Penelope's.
Yeah.
Kai Turner might be in that crew. Yeah, Jordan and
but that would be a real switch if it was like if the Doodles guys broke away and did a second collection. Imagine that. We want to just do a collection that's just for fun, everybody.
Yeah. Oh God. Anyway. Who are the early artists? I don't know. Yeah, anyways, we don't have to keep playing this game, but it is interesting. I like the Snowfro bet. Or like somebody like, you know.
It's funny you say that. I was thinking like Brinkman.
Well, Brinkman was the one who speculated it was Gremplin.
I know, but maybe that's throwing people off.
He's trying to
I know Brinkman. He's not Brinkman, but I think that, why not? I'll throw that rumor out here too. Brinkman's a good friend of mine, so why not?
X-Copy.
Yeah. Maybe it's the up-only guys. Maybe it's Kobe for all we know. Yeah, Banksy.
Yeah.
I'll buy. Yeah, everyone buy now. Gremplin was a good guess. I got why the art looked similar there, and then there was people being like, "Oh, it didn't quite have his vibes." Whatever. Okay, let's talk. We've got a bunch of things we want to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about the Pixelmon comeback. I want to talk about the Reddit stuff. Some of the moves. Speaking of Truth Labs, maybe that's a good segue. Or do we want to talk about NFT NYC?
Oh yeah, we might as well very quickly get. Yeah, we might as well. I mean, I want to say I'm sitting here with two of the most important people in NFTs, and I feel very blessed. I want to say I tweeted this, but I was told that I was the 101st most important person in NFTs, and I just missed the cut. Funky Dog just missed the cut.
It just cut up. Yeah, I my tweet. It's a weird thing. Did you tweet that you?
I didn't tweet it. Emily tweeted that I was on it, so I just commented on that and. I think I retweeted that, but yeah, I didn't. It's just a weird. So
that's exactly what I was going to say. So they, obviously NFT Now is like, hey, had made all these assets for us to tweet out, and we're like, hey, like tweet it out. Obviously, they want to spread the word about it, and so it's that. But I have that mixed feeling of like, oh my gosh, there's something that feels sort of like, I don't know about like tweeting out like, I made the list. But so I was like, I'll make it kind of funny. So I tweeted just being like. I was so thrilled to find out that there's still 100 of us in NFTs, because I was sort of like, that is sort of the feeling in general. I don't know if we should talk. We were talking about this before. Like, there's been kind of a scandal around this now. One of the honorees, whatever that's called, Nicole Benham, has now been like taken off the list because she was caught. We don't even entirely know, I think, what happened, but the current story is that basically she pumped this project, Blocky Doge or whatever, and she was on a Twitter space. I mean, there is, you hear on the Twitter space talking about how, it's the Dogecoin founder and he launched this project and I want everyone in NFTs to know about it. She gets 250 of these for free. I mean, it was a free mint, right? But like she gets 250 of them and like is immediately starting to sell them, basically kills the momentum of the project upward because she just dumps 250 into the market. In like a wallet that she had, like kind of the weirdest thing to me was that she had sent these 250, like, I don't know, like it almost seemed like she'd tried to cleanse it. Like she'd sent it to multiple different wallets before it was ultimately sold. And like, I don't know. It's so weird to know these things. Obviously everyone's coming out being like like you literally pump and dumped onto your followers. You promoted this project. You retweeted the project. You were saying you were in all these things. You got a bunch of free ones. Again, it was a free mint, so it's kind of weird to say that. But like she ended up with 250 of them. Then she immediately sells them in. I just don't understand why people still do this. And it seems like she's trying to make it right. I mean, she put all the money. She swept the floor. She put all the money into like the royalty wallet. I don't know. I feel so mixed about these stories. You guys have thoughts? Anything you want to add, share?
Yeah, it's the space. It's like we see this stuff happen over and over and over again to varying degrees. And it's always that, where is the line? Because if you're going to be for lack of a better word, influencer or person who has a lot of followers, and you're talking about NFTs, whether it's on a podcast, a Twitter space, a tweet, anything, and you're trading, there's always going to be infinite conflicts. And it's like, where do you draw that line? Disclosing, and like, I would say this is very much over the line. If you're on the one hand talking up a project and simultaneously in the same breath dumping them, that is a clear no-no. I know the line gets very murky and blurry at other ends of the spectrum, but this one, it seems pretty cut and dry.
Yeah, assuming that, I guess that is just what happened. I mean, it almost boggles my mind that like somebody with a bunch of followers and like kind of high name recognition in the space would attempt something like that at this point. Like, because I do think there's like grayness. You've had obviously other influencers who got caught up in this, or like maybe they'd bought a project and then many months later decide they want to sell that project, but they've been talking about it over the past number of months. People get mad about that. I have a little bit like I have a little bit more forgiveness around some of that. Like, you're allowed to live your life. You're allowed to buy a project at one point, then want liquidity and sell because you want to buy into something else. Like, whatever. This was literally within the same like 5-hour period. Like it's so clearly kind of egregious that I almost feel like I must be missing something, because how could anybody do something that egregious? I will say the silver lining out of this is the endlessly just memeable, hilarious line, mistakes were made in a wallet that I controlled, or there were mistakes made in a wallet I controlled.
I can tell you there are many mistakes made in wallets I control, but unfortunately it's because I didn't sell or that I bought stuff I shouldn't have purchased.
Yeah, many mistakes have been made in wallets I control too. Let me be clear. Like, what the hell? But I actually, it's like Kevin level to me. Like, I'm like, I will be saying that for the rest of my life. Like, I will take that gem with me as I march forward in this world and cherish that line for forever, because it is just hilarious. Mistakes were made in all that I control.
I was gonna say, it was like I'll see my daughter's 18 now and got a tattoo, and if anybody asks me like, why is that tattoo weird? I'll be like, well, mistakes were made with children that I raised, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
By the way, I'll say, I mean, listen, the hardest thing about this space always is it's all trackable. And this is the thing that people don't really understand. I mean, I think also to what Zen was saying is like, we're in a place where people are mad already, and they're already feeling like that they have they've either missed opportunities, right? One of the big things around the Nakamigos FUD is like this idea that there is FUD around it, that people like, you know, a project that went up and there's like a pump and dump kind of theory behind it, that all these whales are in it, and that like a lot of people missed it. And then when you miss something like that, there's an instant emotional reaction like, wow, I could have bought this, and I bought, you know, I don't know, the Secret Rat Society thing that, you know, somebody bought in here. But like, but the idea is, I think in some ways when something like this happens in a full bull market, it kind of fades out quickly because we don't tend to like dig in on it. It's still not a good thing, obviously. I think that this was a big mistake on her part, and I think she's trying to do what she can to make it right. But in this market particularly, it's going to echo in ways that it wouldn't have if everybody was feeling all up in that way.
Which you should also know, because we just went through this with Nakamigos honoraries, which was way, you know, I don't fault people who got a free thing sent to them that they didn't ask for, selling them. Like, that's like, but people are mad about that. You know, we had art gobblers however many months ago that stirred this all up. Like, it just feels like, how do you not kind of read the room? Speaking of like, all of this is public. My fiance sent me an article this morning. It was like a Wall Street Journal article. I think it's weird. They're like, now, like with new advancements, like law enforcement, there's no anonymity in Bitcoin. Like, law enforcement can like actually track the criminals now. And like the new advancements were like, they learned how to read the blockchain. I'm not kidding you. Like, I read this article trying to figure out like what the like big aha was. Zach's like, it's not anonymous anymore. I was like, it was never anonymous. Like, Bitcoin is pseudonymous. Like, you can track wallets. Like, I don't know. This is the Wall Street Journal. Now, part of it, I didn't get to the end of the article. Like, part of it was that they'd actually arrested somebody. So, like, they clearly were able to tie the wallet to individuals, which that's, but literally it was like, now they've like indexed all the wallets and they like know what wallets are sending what where. And I was like, oh my God. So
I'm waiting for a Zach XBT to get his like Law and Order episode, right? Like it's got to be coming at some point. Like, you know.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Someone
or like
needs to make that happen.
Cryptozilla finally gets one. He's deserving. He puts out great content. I love. That's a good channel.
Yeah.
Coffeezilla.
I think it's Coffeezilla.
Zeneca,
Coffeezilla.
y'all messed this up. Do you know that you messed this up?
I messed this up.
Yes, in one of your two Bored Ape episodes, in the title you called him Cryptozilla, and it stuck in my damn brain. And I saw it, and I said, I almost texted you. I was gonna be like, no, it's wrong. It's Coffeezilla. And then it stuck in my brain as Cryptozilla, and I've been messing it up ever since I saw that episode.
I will chat with the person who does the.
Mistakes were made in a wallet you control. I get it.
It's all worth it for the meme. It's all worth it.
Yeah, exactly.
So this segues as well. Actually, let's get into Pixelmon as I speak about Kevin and the things I will like treasure from this era of NFTs forevermore. One of which is that line, and one of which is Kevin for sure. So Pixelmon having a comeback. Not only is it pumping, but or a bit, I don't know. It was the number one game. It was like the number one traded game. It was above Other Side at one point in terms of just volume traded. So it's definitely popping. A couple of long threads. People are kind of writing threads about this, about the Pixelmon comeback story. We've covered this before. This is not like a breaking news. If people remember, I think it was bought. Pixelmon was bought. I want to say like, I don't know, November of last year it was announced, something around then. Actually, Zeneca, you and I talked about it on this show, and I pointed out that the website, that LiquidX, the company that bought it, clearly not English native speakers, but their whole website was in English, and there were some really funky sentences on there. The team actually reached out to me after that episode. I had a call with them, and they were like, "We're fixing it. Thanks for pointing that out." Like, they were really. Wow. I had a lot of respect for the team. So
that's great.
Yeah. So they announced this in October, November, whatever it was of last year. This acquisition, saying all the right things. I had a call with them. Definitely was impressed. Giulio is their new CEO. I think he's Italian. We had a nice call, and again, full of saying all the right things. Had been interested in the project because, well, let's face it, like, it's nice to have a project with attention. It's the same thing as Pudgy Penguins. You're buying a franchise that has already had a scandal around it. You automatically have an in for attention moving forward. So it's a smart strategy. Apparently, Cyberer or whatever his name was, the guy who originally, was behind the whole thing and fucked the whole thing up. He actually was well-intentioned. Like, he was just this young kid, it sounds like, who really just did not know what he had gotten himself into and was really good at hyping things, and it got way bigger than he ever thought. So he didn't actually, he didn't take all the money from the project. Like, when he sold this thing, I don't know, they wouldn't tell me how much he got or what the deal was, but it seemed like they felt like it was very honorable. And the $70 million treasury, or, there's about, was intact, handed off to the new team to actually make right on the project. And so they've redone all of the art, and it is cool. Did you guys see this? Did you see like the new art, like what some of the old art looks like in the new art? It's cool because they really have kept, and they've kept to the spirit of like the hideous, horrible, ugly things, but made them.
Did they keep Kevin the same?
Am
I remembering that?
No, that's a great question.
I think they did.
Memeland bought Kevin.
Oh, did they? They bought
Memeland bought the original Kevin, which is perfect. And they tweeted about it. They're like, amazing. Kevin belongs in Memeland or something.
They did. The last time when they updated the art, I know they did. I'm not sure where they're at here. But I think this is such an interesting story to me because, like, if you remember, there were a couple other projects that raised like this much money, like Raid Party and Wizards and Dragons were both big parties. Like, when you think about those projects, like, who knows where that money is, right? Who knows where the Raid Party money went, or the Wizards and actually the Wizards and Dragons is interesting because like there's a guy that tried to take it over and is working on it, but that was a big amount of money that kind of just disappeared. Yeah. It's nice to see that this money still exists, and like, by the way, Ding-a-Ling just bought a bunch of these, I think, right? So like that's a pretty big signal to the market that like, oh, maybe this project is gonna be stronger when we go forward, and like. That is the kinds of things we all have to hope for, right? Like, there's nothing better than a comeback story in the space, and Pudgy's a good example. But like, when you can have something that was so resonant as like what we all thought as kind of like I think the weird thing about calling this a rug is weird because I think you're right. The kid was just kind of lost and didn't know what he did, and he just was like, he fucked up. But I think that the idea of a comeback and having a real team take it over and then maybe having it be successful would just be amazing overall for NFTs. That would be an incredible thing.
Yeah. Pudgy Penguin's story was incredible. And I just looked it up. Pixelmon, the Kevin, they've kept 2 Kevins. Now there's a Kevin who's like redrawn, and there's an OG Kevin trait. So they've got both in the collection, which I think is great.
That's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, again, they seem to get it. And the Julio, the new CEO, is apparently very involved in the community. He's also been traveling around, like talking, like meeting with people in person. There was a video of him speaking at a gathering in Turkey about what they're trying to do with Pixelmon. And, it seems to be like a PvP battler style game. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's right.
I actually know what I'm talking about, but seemed descriptive to what I saw happening on the screen. And, obviously Pokemon is sort of like the cliche example. Like Pokemon is to games what like Disney is to like these IP companies, it's like the thing that all the games kind of want to be, of course, but it does have that vibe. The characters have that vibe. The little monsters, they're apparently thinking a lot about merchandising and sort of obviously how can you expand this brand beyond just the game. They've made a bunch of huge hires. I think really the story here is that, okay, you had this company come in and buy it, great, but what you've seen is over the last 5 or 6 months, execution against the exact vision they said they were going to deliver. And that's why it's having such a comeback, it feels like right now, as opposed to 6 months ago when it was bought, because people were waiting to see would they really deliver. And so far they have. So I love it. I'm excited. Maybe we'll reignite the conversation with them and have them on the pod or something and talk about what they're up to. Let me introduce you to a brand new company that I could not be more excited about. Web3 Sense. A Web3 analytics platform that combines on-chain data with social media insights to give you the deepest, most meaningful intelligence into any NFT community. I have tested other analytics platforms out there, but Web3 Sense has the most comprehensive capabilities I've seen in the NFT ecosystem. They apply sophisticated data science to wallet histories to determine behavioral patterns and help shape predictive analytics. In other words, they can tell you which Twitter accounts are actually the influencers in your space. And they can tell you what resonates most within a community by looking at what other communities token holders are involved in. The number of use cases here is virtually unlimited. So whether you're a trader, creator, institution, brand, agency, I promise Web3 Sense has data that you want to see with the deep and actionable insights that you need to build, analyze, grow, start, whatever you want to do within the NFT space and in terms of building a business and a community. Now, they are still in very early days, so they're eager to connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about what Web3 Sense can do for you and your business, and you should be, go and fill out the very short form linked to in the show notes, and someone from their team will reach out with more information and an opportunity for a product demo. Trust me, you won't regret it. Okay, let's talk Reddit, Avatars, Gen 3 launch. Speaking of teams that we're talking to, we're having a call, hopefully I'm allowed to say this, with Reddit tomorrow, so I'm excited to dive a little bit more with their team into what they're doing, and we're probably going to have them on this pod at some point to talk more about it. The Reddit Avatar Gen 3 launch happened April 11th. So that was Tuesday of this week, I guess. Mm-hmm. 92 artists, 92, 97 artists, some number in the 90s were involved this time, which was a lot more than previously. You'd previously had like 32 artists, some big folks people might know, Nyan Cat, others involved. And there was a glitch. There was something, it got heavily botted in some way, but in kind of like an abnormal way. So they actually had to stop the minting process midway through and then pick it back up later. Most, all the high value stuff sold out. I think maybe there were some that were still lingering that hadn't sold out. What do you guys think? Maybe Gavin, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is, I think that many people in this space all agree with this, but I think Reddit Avatars is an exceptionally positive, bullish thing for NFTs in general. Like, I think you've got this audience that comes with some preconceived notions about what NFTs are, but like really what this goes back to, it's a little bit like the Nakamigos thing, is right? Like this is NFTs as identity, and like this is a use case where you can own an identity, you can own something, you could conceivably, it's also exposing a whole bunch of people to the idea of the financial upside and downside, clearly, of NFTs as well. I think the one bummer of this thing, which I think we do have to figure out somehow, and I've thought about this a lot over the last 6 months, is there are people who have become experts in what NFTs are. When I say that, I don't mean like just the actual like technical aspects. I mean the experts in terms of trading, right? Because I think this is one of the things that we forget if we're sitting in the middle of this space. We all understand, oh, there's this like, there's this early peak that you can get in on. If you get on early enough, you can get out. And then at this point, you can get out, right? And I think that the mainstream world has zero idea about that. So they might, and this is a little bit like the Trump thing, right? When you're introducing a group of people to NFTs for the first time, if they are suddenly exposed to what I believe are some of the negative aspects of the trading part of NFT culture, which are run-ups and then run-downs, maybe that reinforces some of the things in their brains about what's bad about NFTs, right? Which is this idea of speculation, which is this idea of like these values don't matter. Because I think if you bought one of these early on and you saw your price go up, you'd be like, oh, that's cool. But I think what happened with this, and you talk about the botting, or you talk about, I think a lot of the NFT experts purchased a lot of the bigger name ones early. And by rushing into it, they kind of like cornered the market, which is what happens in business situations all the time. It happens with sneaker botting, it happens with all sorts of things. And then their incentive is to try to maximize profits, right? Whereas the people who are coming in from the Reddit side, their incentives are not that. They just want to get a cool avatar that might go up in value and they love this idea. So I think it kind of sometimes, I don't know how we get past this, but it communicates the wrong messages to the mainstream, right?
Yeah, I think even more than... Because maybe the Reddit user, the casual Reddit user is tracking the price swings, but kind of not, right? Like what we know about these Reddit NFTs is that people have them and they hold them in their vault, but they're not trading them on secondaries. Like they don't want to transfer it to a non-custodial wallet and try and get on OpenSea. Like that's, which is interesting on a couple of levels and maybe worth commenting on. But so I don't even know if they know about the price fluctuations. What does seem unfortunate here is that they probably didn't have a great just experience in general because of the botting. So even aside from the price stuff, it's like, oh, they had to shut this thing down. I mean, I don't know what the perception is. I'd be really curious what the perception is from like a quote unquote normie who actually is not really in NFTs, who's just on Reddit, like what they think happened. But it does feel like you started to have the, I don't know, professional class of NFTers come in and negatively impact the experience of the just like average Reddit user. What do you think, Zeneca?
Yeah, I mean, I think that for the most part, I think most of the world is not like us degens trading NFTs. And I think that most people don't like that. They don't want to, because everyone has had ample opportunity. Like crypto's been around for a decade plus. If people want to be in crypto, they'd be in crypto. If they wanted to explore, very high risk, volatile assets, they'd be in crypto or, trading penny stocks. And like 99% of people don't want that. They just hang out on Reddit because they have fun. It's a community. They get information, they meme. And, oh, now we get an avatar. That's kind of cool. And it's like, that's all I think that they want. I would say most of the people getting Reddit avatars who are Reddit natives have no interest, even in like financial speculation. If you tell them, oh, it could go up to $50, they'd be like, yeah, but I don't really care. Like, or it could go down. It's like, they don't want that. And so I think that it is this friction that is involved because they're NFTs and because now there's financial value attributed to them. The NFT natives who are interested in trading and min-maxing and maximizing profit come in and bot and then try and do all this kind of stuff. And it's like just two worlds colliding that just shouldn't collide. And I don't think there's a way for them to like meld together ever in like necessary. Like I just think the system has to change. And that's where you have things like, maybe make the NFTs unlimited in supply. So there's no financial speculation. It's just like, hey, you want one of these? Go get it. You can use it. And you have an NFT. You can trade it. You can verify your ownership and stuff like that. But there's no financial speculation. I think stuff like that needs to be explored a bit more.
And it becomes a volume thing. Like we've been talking about this, right? Markets are down. There's so few like beacons of light to the people who do want to be just full-time trading degen NFTs. Mm-hmm. If every big company was doing this right, if there was, like you wouldn't then have the need to like rush into like every one moment that there was something interesting happening with NFTs, right? It just feels like it's partly a problem of just scale. Like we're still so tiny that, this stuff is happening. But I'm hoping that maturation of the market just means that like there's more places where people can just go and buy an NFT because they like it, and there's not a bunch of people who are trying to get it for any sort of speculative purposes.
Yeah, I was going to say one thing I would add to this is, and this is the message to the degenerate community, because I think I saw this a couple times when I was looking at things, is that there was a lot of people saying, I'm going to go get a lot of these because I believe I can essentially dump on normies, which I don't think is a real thing. And I think people have to understand that. Do you know what I mean? I think that people have to understand that there is an idea that in this world that like the mainstream or more people are going to come in, and that's going to provide liquidity for you to kind of empty your bags. I don't think that's the answer anymore. Like, I think there was a moment in maybe like late 2021, early 2022, where there were a bunch of people, to Zen's point, who came into this space who were interested in that kind of aspect. These are not those people. So like, just degenerates, by the way, know that this sort of job is not going to be a big money-making opportunity.
Dude, I remember saying this when the Reddit thing first, and when everyone was freaking out, they're like, oh my God, it's 6 million wallets like on Reddit. And I was like, look. I don't want to downplay that because I think this is amazing and it's sick. But it's not amazing and sick because they're going to come and buy your cool cat. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's not amazing and sick. And Cool Cat's probably one of the very few that would maybe be bought because it at least is like a little bit more mainstream friendly. But like, insert your weird, no offense, your weird rat club or whatever it's called, Gavin. Weird is not the adjective in it, but you know, like secret rat
society. Yeah, secret rat society. Disclosure, I own too many of them. So let's just be clear.
So please pump them.
Yeah.
Overpriced JPEGs first pump and dump scandal.
Yeah.
Secret rat society. So like, they're not coming for it, you know? Like, the 6 million Reddit wallets is amazing. It's awesome. We should totally celebrate it, but not because they want to come buy your lame JPEGs or my lame JPEGs, much to my dismay. Yeah, I think that's a great point. And to just hit this point home, so looking at some of these, I'm looking at some of the numbers. Oh, shoot. So like Nyan Cat's art, for example, right now has 61 ETH of volume on secondary. The most expensive one sold for 1.1 ETH, but the floor price is 0.23 ETH, right? 61 ETH volume is just like not secondary. I mean, it hasn't been that long, but like that's not crazy. You know, you see the secondary volumes on these things. And by the way, these are the ones that are doing well on secondaries. These are the ones that have secondary activity. Tyler Faust's 21 ETH secondary activity, 0.039 floor price. Like,
that's so low, right? Yeah.
It's so low. It's exactly your point. These are just not being flipped and traded because the people who are interested in them are sitting on Reddit, not interested in coming to OpenSea and MetaMask and non-custodial wallets and like becoming degens. Like, they actually love it for the sake of loving it, which, to be honest, is so bullish. Like, it's a proof of concept that people want to own cool little digital things, right? We should actually take heart in this if we can separate out the desire to like be able to dump our bags.
By the way, I will say one last thing about my theory around this is that the idea of opening the pie up to a larger group of people, and I would say like this kind of gets to the free-to-play model of like video games as well. 90% of people in a free-to-play video game aren't spending money, right? They're like, or they're just kind of experiencing it. They're living in that world. But those 90%, if you grow the overall pie, the 10% who do grows also, right? And I think the idea of growing the mainstream NFTs means that eventually, if it gets larger and larger, there will be more people who will gravitate to this world that we all live in this space. So that means that it's good for everybody. But the thing is, you have to understand like who the different audiences are that are coming in. The Reddit audience is like in the 90%, I think. They're not going to, but by the way, maybe there's like 0.1% that will fold over into our world, which kind of, I think you saw a little bit of the Donald Trump thing, which when the Donald Trump NFT came out, the vast majority of those people are just like Donald Trump fans who are going to buy a Donald Trump NFT. But there were a few people, and I know this because I saw a couple people buy things in other spaces that moved into this larger opportunity. Opportunity is the wrong word. Maybe it's a sickness, right? It's more of a sickness. Who moved into the sickness of being a trader. That does happen. So the overall market getting larger is amazing. But just know, like, as somebody from this space, who is going to actually buy things. And this is not them, I think.
It is a good thing that we're onboarding 6 million people, millions of people, because there will be a percentage that are attracted to our world. And the way I think about it is, if you look at the non-NFT world, there are so many people that will spend a lot of money on comics and rare comics and baseball cards and, you know, art and sports memorabilia. And there's so much stuff that people just collect, and they like to collect, and they like owning things for the sake of owning them. And most of those people have zero interest in owning anything digital today. But fast forward 5 years, 10 years, wherever, as the younger generation grows up, as more and more people in our generations and older generations start to understand this digital world and wrap their head around digital ownership, that's when adoption happens. And that's maybe when some of our bags, almost certainly 99%, not of them, but like there'll be occasional things where like, all right, these things have true historic value, true cultural value, true lasting value, because you've picked one of the 10,000 PFP projects that actually still exists in 10 years, or you've picked art that's relevant in 10 years, and like that. All right, that's like the dream scenario, I think, if you're holding those things. But for most people, it's like hopium, and it's just not gonna end that well.
Yeah. This is just another Art Blocks pitch for Zeneca. Secretly,
I worked very hard not to say the word squiggle in that whole spiel.
I could like feel it. I could feel it radiating off of you. I was like the elephant in this entire paragraph.
But not just Art Blocks, obviously.
So
CryptoPunks and
no,
Autoglyphs, Xcopy. But yeah, squiggle was like on the tip of my tongue, and I was like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Restraints and okay, let's talk about this move. Truth Labs is the latest to do it. I know there's been a couple others. Yuga, I think, has like subtly done this with their yoga what's their
Coda.
What are their characters? Their Coda decouplings.
Yeah.
So let's start with the Truth Labs story to kind of get us into this. So a couple days ago, whenever it was, basically all the metadata on Goblin Town assets was changed. It was quite funny. It was like it was a middle finger. It was changed to like an artfully drawn middle finger that was with a quote behind it that was something like "Long live the flippers, they are the heart of this space." Like ironically, like it was basically giving a middle finger to the idea, to like the super financialization trading stuff, and to being like we should have no royalties anyway, and it came with a longer description that was explaining that they were changing the smart contract so that they would have more flexibility with the smart contract moving forward, including the ability to block marketplaces that don't honor royalties. They're building their own marketplace, and they're going to airdrop 22,000 new NFTs to holders for free. Okay, you're right. So the new marketplace thing is interesting too. I don't know I'm kind of skeptical on. Like I get the premise of it, but I'm not really sure how all these like bespoke marketplaces are really going to work in the long term. But anyhow, so that and really at the heart of this is, it seems that they've been signaling, is the royalty thing, and is we want to be able to block marketplaces who don't enforce royalties because we want royalties. So anyways, what do you guys think of this?
I think it's the natural progression of a lot of projects that we're going to see. So we've seen a handful do it. Yuga, obviously, with other side and with coders. The Plague did it. There's more I'm blanking on. Creeps did it. Yeah. So and I think it's just sort of understandable. Like if you're okay with having more centralized control, which I think most project founders are, and most holders of like PFP or community-based projects understand that what you're buying has an element of centralization because you're relying on the team and deliverables and all that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, I think we're going to see a ton more do this moving forward. Obviously, there'll be some that will refuse to because they don't want to tarnish the sanctity of the decentralized nature of a true NFT and the ability. Like it does sort of like. So I saw I think it was a tweet or a comment in response to this by one of my friends, Swambat, who is very like pro ownership and decentralization. And he was like, if you think about it, if these are digital assets then that we own, or like ostensibly we're meant to own, this is kind of akin to you buying a painting and a year later the painter comes into your house and like spray paints over it and is like, and then like, potentially gives you another one that you didn't ask for that's slightly different. And it's a weird thing to wrap your head around in terms of like true digital ownership. So that's where there's the friction. And I know there are a lot of probably more of like the people who were in the space prior to 2021 who really came because they believed in decentralization and all that kind of stuff. Whereas the people who came in 2021 were more about making money and flipping and but also just like centralized elements of these NFTs. I think that the hesitancy will come from the OGs, I guess, and certain newer comers. But yeah, we're definitely going to see a lot more of this. This is just like, I think we're going to see like 100 projects in the next 6 months do the same.
Have you thought about doing this for Zen Academy at all?
So fortunately, the way that we've already been evolving so we're working towards a PFP, and so we already have like this burn timeline in place. So our first tokens launched in November 2021, and then we did Zen chests in, I want to say late last year, and we were able to use a new contract for that. And then we have our PFPs coming out in the next few months, and we'll do a new contract for that. So we have that benefit where we had already planned to build in a burn function, but yeah.
And so the new PFPs will have will it have built in the ability to block marketplaces?
Yes, yeah. Because I mean, internally I have friction because I love the decentralized nature and I love that. But then I also know that, well, we're a company, we're delivering content and courses and value and hiring people, and we need revenue, and this is one revenue stream, and it seems almost silly not to avail ourselves of it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've said this on the podcast a number of times. I actually may have even said it on a space with you at one point, Zen, but like that is the central tension right now in the space is, do you believe the heart of it is decentralization, or do you believe the heart of it is a creator empowerment? And I think you have people who have come to this space. I think those are two strong ethos that have brought people to this space. And every so often they are at odds with one another. And a lot of times they work in service of the same goal. And then every so often they're at odds with one another, like in this debate, which is it really fundamentally about empowering creators, or is it about decentralization? And I'm probably more on the creator empowerment side as well. And like the business side of like, I don't think we shouldn't be idealistic about this. Like these should be tools that work because they do actually improve old systems, not just are a certain way for the sake of being a certain way. And to me, people would certainly argue why decentralization improves the old system, but to me, the royalty thing is a big piece of it, or is where I see the most like improvement over old systems, let's say. Gavin, you got thoughts on this?
Well, I mean, I agree with all of what you're saying, and I totally can see the business model side. And the only thing I will say is I think the thing that always shocked me about the reaction to this is, how is it possible that some people, and I think Zeneca, you're right, some people came at this with like, look at this is what they can do with these sort of assets, but like a lot of people also didn't understand that this was possible. And I think that when I saw a couple tweets, it was people like being, how can they even do this? I'm supposed to own this. And it's like, guess what? Anytime an NFT is hosted on a server, the art can be changed and the thing can do. The only way around this, and there are some really amazing projects, and this is a shout out to a community I've been involved with a long time, Anonymized, which is a fully on-chain asset that is decentralized and cannot be changed because the project owners don't have the control over it. Once that exists, it's out there in the world. Sure, they could set up another contract to allow you to burn to get something else, but they cannot change your art because it is all burned onto the chain, right? Like, so
they're like Avastars. Avastars was like the first of this. Speaking of Jimmy, right? Like who we mentioned earlier in the show. So like, Avastars is that Cyber Brokers is that, right? Cyber Brokers was then sort of like the next iteration of like an Avastars.
What's that? Which
Rhymes with fart clocks. Art blocks, all on chain. The code is on chain. Anyone can reproduce it forever. No one can change it.
There you go. Yeah. But I will say, like, so to me, like, this is an education opportunity for a lot of people maybe who are new to the space and don't understand this. Yeah. It's always a hard sell, right? It's always a hard sell to be like, hey, this is an important thing. But if you care about decentralization, there are many projects out there and art blocks and our larger ones that actually do make this part of their whole ethos. So like, know that like, hey, there's other projects out there. That said, like, I am a big fan of Goblin Town doing this because I think that Goblin Town also got so much shit for like what I was so mad sometimes where the people would say like, what they do with those 5,000 ETH in royalties. It's like, y'all, this was a free project. This was a free project. They put a ton of money into. If we cannot allow people to make money on something that was free to get, then what are we doing here? Like, this is part of the business side of this all. Like, yes, and sure, I would love them to see them do more because I think they're super smart and I think they are. Like, clearly they created a marketplace, but also like, this is not like a raid party that minted out at 1.5 ETH and then like took 70 million and who knows what the fuck is going on with it. It's a totally different thing.
Totally. They said out the gate, no utility, no roadmap, no Discord. Like, if you did not know what you were getting into with this, it's because you didn't pay any damn attention. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is on you. That is a buyer's error at that point.
I'll just quickly say the problem with the Goblin Town and so many other projects is that, yes, it was a free mint, but so many people bought in at half an ETH, 1 ETH, 5 ETH, 9 ETH, and now they have their own expectations, and it's a literal impossible position to be in to try and, cater to those.
Yeah.
But that's, again, like, that's a buyer's error. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you as a buyer, I really do believe it was your job to look at, was the team saying they were going to do anything? Was the team, like, what were you being promised? And of course, Truth Labs in general has done other things. They did the, not Chain Faces. What was the thing they did?
The Illuminati thing?
No, well, they did Illuminati beforehand, but that DAO did another project.
187?
Where they put some more, what was it called? Okay, so they basically had found like the very first, what they, they didn't want to say that. I understand why, but like very early example of generative art PFPs. It was like a hackathon project in like 2017. Somebody on like, and somebody did, oh my gosh, why can't I remember? I have one. It's Chain Faces. It's something, or like Crypto Faces. I think it's called Crypto Faces. Anyway, they like basically copied the code for that to like, they basically tried to revive this like very early project, and they had invested in making that possible. And like it's not like they're not doing anything. Right? It's not even like these guys are sitting on the beach. Not that I would even blame them if they did, because I'm kind of with you. Like, if you didn't promise, if you're meeting what you promised, you didn't like sell people on some vision that you've now abandoned, like, you're entitled to whatever you've made on that, in my opinion. I was going to say something else. Oh, I was going to joke, Gavin. You were like, for anybody who's new to the space, who doesn't understand this, I'm like, are there people new to the space now? Like, is anybody, I feel like people are just like leaving the space. I don't think anybody's coming in right now. So if you're new to the space, welcome. We're so happy to have you. Let me tell you.
Tweet at us. We want to shout you out.
Stay,
we are
please.
Desperate to hear from you. If you are new to the space, please come talk to me. You are my shiny beacon of hope. No, but
this is going to be clipped. Like, this section, like in next bull run, and be like, look at how desperate we were in the bear. We were begging for new people.
Just like, I will do anything. Okay, but yeah, I do think. I mean, I did a good episode about on-chain art and about the importance of that for people who believe in it with Jimmy himself. I think it was in Austin last year. So I want to say it was maybe during South by Southwest of last year. So like February of last year, Jimmy and I did an in-person conversation in Austin where he really talked about why it was so important to him that Avastars be all on chain and the effort that went into making that happen. And I have a lot of respect for that. It has surprised me that has never, Avastars has been one, and I own some. So again, pump and dump. Here we go. Trying to do a pump and dump number 2 here on OPJ. Go get into Avastars, folks. It was, that was like a project that it was also like really foresaw the PFP movement. Like, Avastars was one of the earliest like identity pieces, I mean, Punk's obviously being really early, but it kind of surprised me that Avastars never had more of like Grail's status. I think it deserves more than it has.
I agree. Sorry, one other thing about Avastars, which I think is accurate, is I believe they were the first collection to give commercial rights to holders in a way that everyone kind of thinks Bored Apes was the first that did that. And they obviously popularized it. Avastars did it. And so, yeah, I've always loved Avastars. I also hold a bunch, pump and dump, but I think that, it's one of those, maybe, like, I have a lot more faith in Avastars. Like, if we zoom out 10 years from now, I think Avastars is infinitely more likely to be culturally relevant and worth something to collectors than 99.99% of projects released this year, last year, or 2021.
Yeah. Petition to get Jimmy in Nicole's spot, I guess, on NFT Now, huh? You've got an open spot. Let me ask this. Sorry, not to circle back to the topic that we already weren't sure we really wanted to talk about that badly. But one thing that I think is interesting. So NFT Now decided to take her off the list. I didn't know how I felt about that. I don't know. It was like a very popular reaction to that was like, you'd have to get rid of 80% of the NFT Now 100 list if you're going to get rid of Nicole for this. And I was like, I get why that's like a funny line, but like, that's really not true. Like, if you look at that list, Farouk gets crap for stuff, but like, I think Farouk's stuff has always been more nuanced. Maybe I just haven't tracked it closely enough, but like it has always felt more like what I said at the top, which is like he had bought a bunch of projects because he was super into this stuff early. He's a, gregarious, open guy. He's talking about different projects he likes on Spaces. And then some number of months later, he decides to sell those, which like I have mixed feelings on. Like I guess why people like find that annoying, but I also like don't think that's that egregious. Like I don't believe he didn't. I think he liked those projects and then at some point wanted the liquidity and like so. They're really, I don't think it's fair to suggest that NFT Now list was actually full of people who are like pumping and dumping. I don't know what you guys think of that, but.
I saw all those comments and I was kind of had the same reaction where like, yeah, maybe there's a couple on there that you could put into a similar category, but it comes back to something else we were talking about earlier, how like there's toxicity in the space. And I think that like I, for one, I feel like I have received 10 times the amount of people calling me out for like being terrible for the space or a grifter or a pump and dump, like all that kind of stuff than I did in like 2021 or during the bull. And, part of it is I'm pretty sure it's due to the bear. Part of it's probably the Blur affiliation and other things, but it's just people definitely seem on edge and antsy to generally group in any influencer altogether, it seems.
I've seen one person call you out. I DM'd you about it. I was like so triggered. I was like, this is like the nicest, like just like most genuine, like least grifty person. I just like really had a very emotional reaction. And I don't really have emotional reactions on Twitter because most of these people are idiots, but I was just like, what the hell? Like, how can anybody accuse you of that? But I've only seen one, but I'm sure, you privately get all sorts of stuff. But it's also just
I remember
jealousy.
that one. And the thing that made me like care, like I didn't care too much to begin with, and I generally don't, but the thing that made me like care zero was the second person that because they said like public enemy number 1, public enemy number 2 was 6529. And I'm like, all right, this guy has lost absolutely all credibility.
New NFT Now, it's just the NFT Now 100 list. It was all of his public enemies. It was literally Zeneca was public enemy number 1. And then, public enemy number 2 was 6529. I was like, okay, this is just the most blatant engagement farming. I thought it was a joke at first. Like, the reason I got triggered was because it was almost like a joke. You know how, like, a good joke fakes you out, and at the twist at the end is what makes it funny. It was like that. Like, I was like, oh, haha, somebody's doing one of these jokes where they're like, let me tell you why Zeneca is so evil. And then it's like somebody who works on your team, and it's like, he like sings songs every morning, and it's so annoying because I'm not a morning person, or like it was going to be one of those. And then I was like, oh my God, I think it's real. Like, I think they're actually trying to shit on this person. And then I was like triggered because it was not what I was expecting. But yeah, no, it was whatever. I think it was just like somebody who hates Blur. All right, folks. Well, I think that brings us to the hour mark, and actually exactly to the hour mark. Wow, I'm getting good at this podcasting thing, huh? I really know how to time my shit. She says, coming off of last Friday's episode, which was literally like an hour and 30 minutes, which nobody wants to listen to an hour and 30-minute podcast, but unless you're like Joe, unless you're listening to like Joe Rogan. Thank you both so much for being here.
It's been fun.
Thank you, as always.
We didn't do overpriced, underpriced this time. We'll bring it back next week. All right. Have a good weekend, folks. See you in Austin.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.